All right, welcome back to Unofficially Opinionated. I am Christian here with Tim and Nate as usual. What's going on,
What's
guys?
up?
Hey,
What's up? What's up? Well,
Yeah.
today we'll be talking about the LGBTQ plus T. Did I miss some letters,
Community.
Nate?
Oh, there's a ton. No, we
There's
just
a lot of
we
them.
just say LGBTQ plus because there's like I A. Yeah, no, you
Yes,
don't.
and
Yeah,
everything, and the relation to kind of the Bible and religion. So that'll
and
be kind of
especially Pride Month.
yes, because of Pride Month. So, or when you hear this, it'll be over. But Nate said Pride is all summer,
They
so
have Pride parades
enjoy
all
your
summer, even
extended
until August.
Pride.
Okay, so yeah.
only if February was that long.
I know. Well, listen, and they listen.
Look. We just had Juneteenth. We got a whole holiday now, so
Yeah,
I
Right.
mean,
that's true.
my job didn't give us the day off. But, I keep
you,
saying every year I'm going to take it off myself, and then I end up
I
working.
bet you if you raised a ruckus, you could do that.
I'm the.
You're
I
like, listen,
know.
I'm bad. I keep forgetting. You have to
They're
remind me.
they're not going to care.
Like, it's Juneteenth. I'm like, today? Yeah.
I didn't know.
Like June who? What is that?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Is that
until
a new
I went
holiday?
online,
I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very new for me, the holiday, right? So,
Yeah.
and also
It's
here
not-
is not a thing.
It's not ingrained.
Yeah,
It's not like
yet.
Christmas.
Well, it's not like.
Well, it's sad
it's
because I
not
didn't
like
realize
Black
it was even a
History
thing
Month.
until like maybe 5 years ago.
hmm
Me.
I
well,
just
yeah.
was not aware of Juneteenth.
But I
This
don't
year,
think
a
it
lot
was
of people got
very
shot
well-
on Juneteenth. They're so happy now.
Wait, who got shot?
Man, all over the country, people get shot at Juneteenth.
Really?
But I mean,
Watch
it's just
news.
every another day. People
Yeah.
get shot every day. So
That's true.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's shot
Especially-
on Juneteenth.
Right.
It
No,
was
they get
just
shot
another
on
day.
Juneteenth at
Look.
Juneteenth celebrations.
Look,
Oh,
They're shooting up the party.
okay.
Like,
Well, listen.
Tim's trying to cause
So that's how our
division
weeks
in our
went.
country.
Yeah. There's a black festival. Black people get shot up.
Black on black crime. Here we go.
Yeah.
Tim.
Okay. So how was y'all's week? Christian.
Right. Well, I guess by the time people hear this, my family will be back. But for now, I'm kind of in a bachelor pad mode.
Oh.
So you know what I've been doing?
Gaming and eating.
Being irresponsible and gaming way too much and getting no sleep. It has
Yes.
been rough.
Vive la révolution.
Well, so before they left, I had to spend literally like 3 days trying to get their phones situated with Carol's phone, and
Yeah.
let me just tell you, it was a hassle, even to the point of being in two different carriers' stores on the phone with customer service at the store.
Yeah.
It was just,
I can't.
and then Carol had to call me on WhatsApp from across the pond to still try to get it to work. So
Eventually, it still
eventually,
didn't work. Oh, that's fun.
they still didn't activate it. So we called them, they got it fixed. So now she's good. They're good. They're touring over there.
Nice.
Jaden's with the Baltimore Symphony Youth Orchestra.
Mhm.
They're doing
Look at
a
him
10-day
doing
tour.
things. Mhm.
Right. So yeah, they're going to be in Italy, Slovenia, Austria, and Czech Republic.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Slovenia. Why?
So, yeah.
I mean, sorry. Why?
I don't remember exactly what was there. I know they're visiting like some kind of notable like concert halls and other like musical type things.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, no, one place they're going to where either both Beethoven and Mozart was born or lived or something. I'm not sure. There's a lot of stuff they're doing.
Okay.
But
Wow. That's
I've never been to Europe myself except for a layover. So, you know.
really. I
Yeah.
don't understand. Tim, I know, hasn't. So I don't understand how y'all have a friend that lives literally in like the middle of Europe almost, and y'all have been here. Oh, sorry.
So I got friends in Africa too. So
Yeah.
I ain't. I got friends in Africa
yeah,
too,
but
and I
you
ain't going there
don't work
either.
with them,
No.
Look, it's kind of far.
and
Yeah.
it's a little
Do
expensive.
I want to stay on the plane for like
And
19
that.
hours?
19 hours. It's only 12.
That's still too long.
Get your
I-
facts straight,
Right.
Tim.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me knock off some hours. Okay.
From Seattle. So
Yeah. From Seattle to New York.
New York.
Seven- is that like
there's
7
a
hours?
Direct. No. There's a direct from Seattle to.
Oh no. We
France.
need this. We need to take.
Now,
Seattle to New York.
does that go
I gotta get off the plane.
west or does that go east from Seattle?
Ooh,
That's a
I
good
don't
question.
know because there was one that went west,
Or does it
and then
go
there
over
was-
the top?
and then there was one that went. When I went flew direct
Hmm.
Or sorry. So actually, now that you asked me that, that's a good question because so two times I flew into, or sorry, to and from Seattle directly. One flew direct. I think it went east to go directly to France. I think,
Interesting.
and then the other one flew west, but it went. We got to Europe, but I forgot where we stopped off. I think, or vice versa, because I'm very bad with geography. But I do remember that one time we did go east because you see it on the maps in the in the airplane.
Hmm.
So one we did go east, which I was which I didn't know was actually I didn't know that was how they did that, and then one goes west. But again, I'm very bad with
Yeah.
geography, so
Right.
someone can correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am. But I do remember one went directly to France with it was British Airways went directly to France. Or sorry, uh, directly to no. Actually, that might be it. No, it went directly to France. God, now I can't remember.
It's
I do
okay.
know that one
It's
went east and
okay.
one went west, but one
Yeah.
went directly to France, and the other we stopped off, but in Europe. Like we didn't stop in America.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like when we did the layover in London when we went to Kenya when I was in high school, I'm pretty sure I feel like we did go directly from Seattle to London,
Yeah,
British Airways, but they do go. It's
Wait,
not like they go straight across the country.
wait,
They
wait,
they, they
wait.
go like up, kind of over. It's not directly over the top, but it is at more of a upward because the way the Earth
because
is
the way
curved,
the
and
curve. Yeah.
yeah, you kind of go up,
What high
and
school did you
it's
go to
shorter.
that went to that went to Kenya?
When I was in high school, I went to Kenya, but I went with our church. Remember?
Nope, because I didn't go.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
it's
I
like
didn't
I do
your
go.
know what it
family
was.
were there.
I didn't go.
You had
Oh
aunts and uncles
yeah,
on the trip.
yeah, my aunt
Yeah,
did.
what alcohol you say?
She came back with a dashiki. I remember that actually now. I don't remember go. I never went, but I remember she came back with all that stuff. She still wears it to today.
Okay, well, it's good.
Yeah,
Listen.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm mad
So
I
yeah,
didn't
that's
go.
that's what I've been up to. So what about you guys?
Uh, I've been
Sad and
having
depressed
the
for me.
worst week, so
Oh,
it's
what's
not
wrong?
it's not a horrible week, but it's just been a bad week. Yeah, just sometimes my ADHD kicks into high gear. Now I know what to blame it on. Like now I know, like, okay, this is the reason why. So I feel less bad about it, I suppose. Whereas,
Hmm.
otherwise I'd be like, dang it, Nate, like you should be able to do this. Like, this is very easy. It makes a lot of sense, and yet you don't do it. But now I
Right.
understand why people don't understand the struggle. People really think that oh, you're just blaming things. I did have a friend that asked me about ADHD, and she said, which I think a lot of people were thinking. We'll have a podcast about it. But one of her things that she asked me was, "Do you think that ADHD is kind of on the rise because of the amount of screen time that people are putting in and stuff like that?" I understand where the thought process is because the thought is that we're becoming less especially like in America, with the whole YouTube shorts and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you get better responses from shorter things because people have
Yeah,
shorter
I
attention
noticed that
spans and stuff
actually.
like that. Yeah, stuff like that. But I understand what she was hinting at. But excuse me, I when I was reading up on it, ADHD, just like any other kind of, I don't want to call it a disability, but I suppose it is, or neurological kind
Just call
of
it a thing.
whatever thing. Yeah, much like anything else, like autism and stuff like that. Like they were less diagnosed before because they didn't know what it was, right?
Hmm.
So when the more you understand about it, the more you can kind of retroactively be like, oh, perhaps this is what you were dealing with because of the situation. So then you go in to get tested, and then you find out, oh yes, it is, because now they have tests for it. Now they have things to associate with it and stuff like that. So that was because the thing, excuse me, just a side note, like when I was growing up, we didn't have any TV. My mom did not buy a TV. She didn't have a TV. We had a radio, and My mom was fully aware that I had ADD at the time because that's what it was called, ADD. But she couldn't get me tested for it. She probably wouldn't have anyway because black, you know.
Hmm.
but in any case, she was fully aware of it, and she struggled. She was like, I was just a really hard child to work with. She will tell you that to this day. She was like, she was just the hard child to work with. It's just a thing, you know. So but now that I've gotten tested for it, now she understands why. So whatever. Anyways, it struck
Well,
up again multiple times this week, and it's very frustrating because you're just like, oh, I should be able to accomplish these things, and you just cannot. Your brain just refuses to allow you to do it. So it's very frustrating. So yeah, that in addition to everything else that I kind of was hoping would work out, and then they just didn't. So yeah, it's been a frustrating week. 2 weeks maybe.
I get it. Well, get on Diablo and kill some things
Yeah,
and feel
that's what
better.
I've been doing. Yeah.
How about you, Tim? Other than
uh,
your window,
yeah, I'm just closing the window because it's a giant airplane flying by.
very casual, very
Right.
casual.
Yeah.
It's like they won't see me.
No, just beam of light coming through the blinds. No, this week my kids are home.
Yeah, summer break, right? Or is
Yeah,
That sounds great.
it's the first week of my kids home for summer break, and 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 teaching them how to be home because I notice my kids when they're at school, the teachers are like, "Oh, they're so sweet. They're the best kids. Oh, they teach how to other kids how to behave. They're headed. They're on top when it comes to reading and their math. They talk.
Mhm.
They act like little angels, and they forget all that when they come home. And
Oh, of course.
it's like, wait, did your teacher say you do this? You don't do this at home. I
Oh,
don't know who
listen,
this.
that just means you teaching them well. You teach them how
I
to
don't
be
know.
in public.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it's. Let me tell you that is the most heartwarming, frustrating thing
yes,
that they know how to act somewhere else,
Yeah.
and so when they get home, they're like, okay, I can
Right.
relax.
yeah,
Just be me, right? And you're like, but
yeah. That
no,
needs to be you.
I want that person from over there.
Yeah, whoever that teacher described it, that person need to come home.
Right.
Right.
So,
That's so
so,
bad. Oh
Yeah.
man.
so that's what I've been dealing with, and then trying to work them into how I'm doing other stuff and getting stuff
Yeah.
done. Because they like to they instead of they have this thing. I'm trying to teach my kids right now where okay, if you don't want this kid to have this thing because it's yours because you need it even though you wasn't using it but you need it because you're watching TV, you need to draw something, then you need to
I'm
come
not
up with
following, but go
another.
ahead.
You have a kid sitting there watch TV, and another kid goes to the table and draws. They go, "Oh, that's my pencil," and they fight
Oh,
about it.
yeah.
It's like
Okay.
you wasn't caring about this pencil; it was sitting on the floor.
Right.
But now I guess
But
you,
it's mine.
Yeah.
yeah. So, so I'm trying to teach the oldest kid, hey, look, why don't instead of saying it's mine, don't use it. How about you go get him something else to use? Say use this
Oh.
instead. I want
Hmm.
mine back. That's too complicated. They rather just fight and almost stab each other with a pencil.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's because it's
yeah,
kids.
it's knee jerk reactions. It's mine. Give it to me. And they fight
Yeah.
over a sharp pencil.
There's actually a psychological concept that I was reading, and I forgot what it is. So don't ask me what it is. But there's a
Okay.
psychological
What is it?
concept.
I'm sorry.
How about shut up?
Ow.
That is that comes into play with those types of things. Like for example, when someone gives you something, right,
Mhm.
and then they're like, "Oh, well, actually, take this." Your brain has already attached to the thing that you're given, so you don't want it taken away from you, even
Mhm.
though the thing that they're trying to give you might be even better. Like you've
Mhm.
just grown immediately within a split second. You've already grown an attachment. Again, I forgot what the name of it is, but I read that, and that comes into play with the whole "this is mine," even though I'm not using it sort of thing. Yeah, so that's actually a
Uh,
hard thing to teach. Not necessarily, here, why don't you use this or something like that. But I mean, one of the problems that come into play there is that it's not, a lot of times for me, it wasn't that people were using what I have. It's because I don't know how well they're going to take care of it. And I take
Yeah,
very good care of my own stuff.
I
So
get that.
like, yeah. So,
But I
but
tell my
yeah, it is
oldest,
a
if
hard
they
lesson
pick it up
to
off the
teach.
floor,
Hmm.
you didn't care about it. It
Right.
was
Yeah,
sitting on the floor.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But
then
I knew where I put it, and it was
Right.
safe in
it
there.
was it was safe in the middle of the floor.
But
Nobody was gonna
right.
break it.
Well, it's both sides though, because it's the one saying, "Hey, yeah, like you didn't want it until they had it," but also it's the other one to say, "Hey, look, if it's not yours,
Right. Ask for
everything in this
permission.
house, you know what's yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything that's not yours is someone else's.
Hmm.
Yes.
So find the owner
Yeah.
and ask
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even my son, I'm like, hey, look, you found some change. Was it yours? Then you didn't find it,
You
right?
can't find
Because
you can't
it
find
belongs
money
to
in the
somebody else
house.
in this house, right?
Right.
You can't
Exactly.
you can't find things in the house and
Yeah.
leave it with other people.
Right.
It belongs to someone.
Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
same concept. Like, hey, look, like figure out who it belongs to, ask permission. A lot of times it's yes, but if someone doesn't feel like they gave you the permission, then it's like, wait a minute, like
Automatic no.
I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's no, it's mine. Like don't touch it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
My youngest one, he'll go up
kids.
he'll go up to my oldest one. He'll see a thing, he'll grab it and then immediately run away. It's like, really? Come on, Jerry. Come on, Jerry.
That's how,
You trying to
Right.
get Tom to catch you
right.
to chase you?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, also to get attention,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so many
There's a lot
factors
of
at play.
factors.
Yeah.
I'm glad I only have one.
I'm glad I ain't got none. So
Gosh.
Yet there's still time.
No. I mean,
Hey, look at this.
listen, never say never. So I'm not going to say never because I don't want any. And if I say never, it is.
He said
likely
never.
that-
He said never. Get him.
But no, I'm good. I'm good. So all right.
Yeah, well, we've rambled enough for today.
Yep.
We're like half the time in.
We are.
I'm melting in here
We're
in
gonna
my,
put the
my attic sauna.
And we're gonna put the title that we were supposed to talk about in the video, and that's the end of the video.
Let's just talk about kids and not having kids and everything, and we'll just do an hour of that and
The
forget the
title is
topic.
something totally different. Just like
They're like, this is an LGBTQ plus ABC. Like, what is this thing about kids?
Oh man.
Anyway. Well, Nate, you want to take us into the topic for today?
Yeah, our topic is as you said, Chris. It's about the church, religion, the Bible, and the LGBTQ plus community, and basically Pride. So June is Pride Month. And just for a little background for anybody who doesn't know why, so this I wanted to do this episode for Pride Month in celebration of Pride Month, like we did a whole month dedicated to Black History Month. We did actually put out a video I remastered a video with with Courtney
Spicy.
Jai, who or Jay, he says he doesn't care how you pronounce that. So, but when I found out like the way it was supposed to be pronounced, he said according
Tomato,
to his theory.
tomato, right?
So now like I switched between the two. It's bad. Anyways, I had to because the first video we put out was I was just learning how to do video editing, so it was just whatever. So we put out another one in celebration of Pride Month, and then this one I wanted to do this topic because, I am part of the LGBTQ plus community. So LGBTQ, IA, I'll stop there. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Q is for queer, which is a whole nother topic, to be absolutely honest. Queer means a lot of things. And then I is intersex and A is asexual. I really would like to put A in there as well because they kind of get looked over. Bisexual people and asexual people kind of really get looked over. But anyways, that's a different topic. And so I wanted to talk about the kind of the history why we have a Pride Month. which is the month of June, even though the Pride parades usually go from anywhere from, they can go before June, but June is usually when the parades start because it's the beginning of the good kind of warm season where it's not going to rain. So anywhere from June to August, but I've heard of prides going even into September. So, what pride parades and stuff like that. Pride celebrations, I should say, because they're not always parades, but
Mm-hmm.
celebrations or whatever. And so the history of it, do you, any of you know why we have either of you know why we have, why we,
Could you like parades?
no, why Pride Month? Huh? Like, why does it exist? Like, but I do like parades.
I mean, who doesn't like a parade? So
Well, some people listen. But do you know
actually,
why
my kids don't.
the Pride Month exists? Do you know anything about the history of the LGBTQ
I
plus
know very
community?
little about
Yes.
Stonewall and everything that happened. I know tangentially, like itty bitty bits, but I think that's why we're here
Yeah.
for you
I
to
mean, well, I'm
educate us,
not going to
sir.
do some deep dive education because I'm not a history buff at all. I mean, I
What?
probably know as much about Pride Month as I do about Black history. So
It's sad because it's
it's
true.
sad because it's true. But I do know the kind of like, I guess the essentials, I suppose, if
The
you
Cliff Notes version.
yeah, exactly. So
Yes.
basically it comes from, like Chris said, it was started at a what do you call this thing, come on now, bar, thank you, uh a bar in New York called the Stonewall. All right. And that's where a primarily, I think it was, I say primarily because I don't know if straight people visited, but they probably did. But it's primarily LGBTQ persons that were going to this. And police, as they do in America, kind of get heady sometimes. And they were they were harassing the people that were in the bar constantly. And then they did a raid um, one time on the bar. I think they've done raids multiple times, but this time was just like the last time, and they got fed up. So it's like in the 1960s, and they got fed up, and then they fought back. Right. So, and what's really interesting about this story is that it was um, transgender and like drag, transgender women and drag queens that were kind of like the forefront of this, which
Hmm.
is awesome. It's awesome. Like it's just like I mean, because we're now in the midst of kind of worldwide, basically, kind of fighting for the rights for transgender and stuff like that, and they're the ones that really, for Pride, they really were the ones that stepped up to the plate. So anybody can add to my synopsis. You can correct me if I'm wrong and anything like that. But there was just a lot of kind of hate towards the LGBTQ plus community, mostly because the people didn't understand who we were, and honestly, the LGBTQ plus community didn't we didn't, because we're brought up in circumstances for the most part where people are telling us that life should be one way, and then we're born and we're like, well, life isn't that way for us, and so we're confused as well. And so what people usually resort to, usually resort to kind of like violence, or not usually, but sometimes, often, they resort to violence, or just I don't know, kind of like manipulate, just anything kind of bad too, because they don't understand what's going on, and this is kind of the way that they react towards it. So they were, a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community were abused. There's like um this tragic story of Matthew Shepard, which you all can go read about, who was a victim of was a hate crime, and he died. He was beaten because he was gay, and he was beaten and like left to die, which he did. Now there's like a lot of there's an organization, I think it's called the Shepherd Project, I think there is, or something like that. Um, because of that, like, So, anyways, the LGBTQ plus community have been kind of like hunted down, and just assaulted, just for being who we are. And so then, because of this rebellion at the Stonewall against the police and the government or whatever, they went on a march. Like, they were like, we're not dealing with this anymore. And then one thing led to another. And we ended up eventually with a month to celebrate in the US. We ended up with a month to celebrate our pride. So I had a close friend, who asked me why pride, and I didn't, at the time when she asked me, I didn't really know the answer, because I was just like coming into my own why why pride. But to be honest, like, do you all know why it's called pride? Yeah, I mean, why would we say it's a parade or pride month?
Unless there's some acronym, I was
It's
assuming
not.
it was just about being actually proud of who you
Yeah.
are. Is
Yeah,
how I
that's how I
assume
assumed
kind
it.
of the ethos of it.
Yeah, that's it. It's just because
Oh,
when you figure out who you are, there might be somebody else that has a kind of another opinion. There always is, but in general, when you're finding out your pride, like, for me, you're ashamed for being who you are, right? And so now this is the kind of the antithesis of that. You're no longer ashamed of who you are. You found out who you are, and now you're proud to be who you are. So you're not going to be hiding in the shadows or the closet anymore. You're just going to live your life, do your thing, regardless of what other people, um, think about you. And that's basically how we have to live our lives, is um, kind of be like, for me, I have to constantly, just a personal thing, like, there's a constant battle. I don't know if you've ever, any of you, either of you have had, or anybody listening who's have had to deal with this, but like, anytime you get a new job and stuff like that, it's a question that you have to ask yourself, which I don't feel like is something that people should have to do. Should I let them know, reveal to them that I am gay or not, or bisexual
Hmm.
or not? And it's not really something that you'd want. You say, if I don't tell them this, and people have excuses for the reasons why they will say something or not. They'll have excuses, or they'll have reasonings for it. But pride really just lets you be yourself, despite the fact that these people who you might be having to work with eventually might have an issue with it. But anyways, you got to deal with it. So I have taken this stance. I am me. If you can't deal with it, then we'll have to figure something out, or you just need to stop talking to me. Like, we need to stop having
Yeah.
interactions, because that's just the best way to go about it. So, anyways, yeah. So that's basically the very, very short synopsis of what we have. Pride and Stonewall, by the way, still exists. It's not as frequented as it was before, apparently, but it's still pretty well. Now it's a landmark, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So,
mm,
yeah. And then to kind of segue that into why this is such an important issue is because I had to deal with it from just the aspect of publicly being, you know, gay, or, yeah, just publicly being gay. And then also being a Christian, or being in a
Hmm.
religion. And that's really the issue. So, any of you have any questions?
Question specifically, no, but
Okay.
I guess what about that? I guess had you want to bring that topic for today? Was there anything specific that had happened recently, or anything you were thinking about going through that kind of brought the topic to the forefront of your mind, or is something you just always think about?
It is not something I always think about. It came up because of Pride, and because during Pride, um, you see hate just 24/7, right? But during the Pride month, you see that for the LGBTQ plus community, you see that come out like tenfold. Like there's a guy that is he's a I think he's a Broadway star. I know he's on Broadway, but he does a lot of like charity work as well. And I supported one of his charities. Not I didn't I supported one of his charities because he asked specifically for something, and I was like, okay, because otherwise I don't donate to charities because I don't trust them. But him I trusted, and he's been doing this for a number of years. So I was like, okay, so he knows and he had a personal kind of story, but he has been under attack just during this Pride he's been showing like his the hater comments and stuff like that. He's just been under attack, and I'm just like, is this like normal? He's like, yeah, it's normal, sort of thing. And I'm only made aware of it now, and it's not the only thing that kind of has happened. There's a lot of attacks on the LGBT community again during Pride Month, uh, from like religious um, kind of, or from different religions, I should say, from the religious sphere. Because for some reason they are very concerned with LGBTQ plus people going to hell or heaven, or not going to heaven or whatever. And that's something that I experienced when I was in a religion. And I have always felt like it's kind of like, that's something that I've always wanted to do, is be a stand up against this ignorance, and not specifically against people or specific persons, because I'm not worried about them. I don't care what these people think or whatever. I used to. I don't anymore. I've learned not to, because it doesn't affect me. It doesn't concern me or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
there are what we call family. There are people in the LGBTQ plus community who are still in these religions, who still think that God hates them or wants them to change and stuff like that. And that is not something that I can kind of like sit idly by and just um, a kind of not push back against, right? So it's not
Yeah.
about proselytizing. I hate proselytizing. It's not about proselytizing. It's not about naysaying what these other people are saying. Again, I don't care about them, but these people, they're like I did, ingraining these beliefs that they have to change, that they're an abomination according to the way that they read the Bible, or the way that they understand the Bible and stuff like that. And so it plays negatively on your psyche, and then you can do some serious that can do some serious damage mentally for these people. And
Yeah.
so I don't go out there like looking for these people who are like, no, no, you're okay, sort of thing. But when I see people, mentioning things that are happening to them, or what they're experiencing, there's this a singer, uh, Archuleta. I think his name is David Art. I think it's David Archuleta. I don't know, but he was on. I think he was on some singing. He was on some singing show, and then he went on to the Masked Singer, and he came out of the closet. I don't know what his orientation is, but he came out of the closet anyway. I think he said at first he was bi, but now I don't know what it is. Or maybe I was misunderstanding. Anyways, he came out, but he was explaining, I think he was Mormon, but he was explaining all of the kind of pressure that he had in his brain, on him, because of, he was going to like marry a woman, but he felt like he wasn't being honest with himself or with the lady. So he said he had many girlfriends or something like that. But anyways, these are just kind of like the stories of people who kind of are confused, right? And they're trying to figure out where God fits in with who they are, And I do know that a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community feel like they have to change themselves for God to love them, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. And I say so to anybody who's got anything to say. I do know that is not true. So, anyways, yeah, this is the reason why uh, I wanted to talk about it for Pride Month, because there's so much hate that's coming out now because of Pride Month, mostly because of Pride Month, and just because there are just so many people in religions who are kind of stuck in this thought process of they're an abomination. So that's why.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought this topic up because I think I told you guys I joined a I'm playing this Lord of the Rings mobile game,
Yeah.
and I saw an advertisement for this Christian guild in the game, right? Which, do you need to have a Christian guild in a game? Probably not. But I said it's Lord of the Rings, which has a lot of crossover with Christianity
Yeah.
because of So
Yeah.
I said, cool, I'll join the group. As you would assume, anyone that creates a Christian guild for a game
Mhm.
is probably a specific type of person.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because who else is going to go out of the way to make a specifically Christian guild in a game?
Right.
It's just a certain type of person.
Mm-hmm.
But I joined just because, for two reasons. One, just to kind of see what was going on. Was not options at the time. And two, I don't want to be the person that only is around people that think exactly like me.
That's
So
the most annoying thing.
so even though it's very difficult. So I joined the group, right?
Mhm.
So automatically they've got, different channels and Discord for like scriptures and testimonies, and they had a politics channel. That was like,
Okay.
why are we doing this?
Yeah,
Like,
Christian
this is
channel with politics.
But you
Right.
only do that if you assume, like, right, like, what's wrong? We all believe the same
Right,
thing. So
yeah.
why not have a politics? So,
I hate
but I told them, I was like, hey, look, I'm not going to comment here very often because I already know
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm the minority. But here's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're commenting, I said, look, I'm a black dude from Baltimore. I let them know, like, hey, look, before y'all get too comfortable,
Right.
just understand who I am and what I'm doing in here.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so before you're getting all into your stuff about different things,
Mhm.
So the other day, they got off on about some sermon, and someone had to correct the pastor.
Mhm.
It was something about LGBTQ topics and how he was condoning and things, and I find a lot of the issue in Christianity, and it's going to sound arrogant to say this,
Mhm.
but I think it's arrogance, and this is what I mean.
Okay.
So they were talking about it, and I was like, hey, I'm not here to say you're right or wrong per se,
Mhm.
but just understand everything you're saying is based off of your interpretation of what the Bible says. Even you're looking at history and tradition, that's all based off of people's interpretations and understandings change over time. That's why we have like 1,000 denominations off of one book, because everyone has a slightly different understanding. It doesn't, and we can't say you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's very difficult to do that because we're all sincerely reading it. Right. So
Yeah.
I was like, I think there's some humility, and I gave an example I thought was going to be easy, and I said, just an example, like, I'm Seventh-day Adventist, right?
Mhm.
I happen to agree with I said plain reading of the Ten Commandments, right? It says seventh day. I happen to agree
Mhm.
with the plain reading of the seventh day, right?
Right.
And so the guy was like, well, according to tradition and actually the implicit reading, which I'm like, implicit, that already
Right,
means.
because you were
Implied.
changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, Jesus rose on Sunday, and so therefore we worship on the Lord's Day. It's plain and simple. Like, he's like, it's straightforward. And I was like,
Well, when was he resting?
but here's the thing, like,
Yeah.
I'm not here to argue with you about
Right,
it, right? I
right.
like,
It's an
like
argument,
the point wasn't to argue. The point
Yeah,
was to let
Point
you
something
know
out, yeah.
that, hey, this thing to me seems very plain,
Right.
and at a very literal level, it says seventh day,
Right.
Right.
And I happen to take that particular verse literally.
Right.
Do I take every verse literally? No. Right?
Yeah.
We all pick and choose. But I just want to let you know, hey, look, you happen to take this one not literally.
Right. Yeah.
Because of reasons you have.
Right.
So my point was, hey, look, with all of these areas, just understand that our understanding is the best we can do
Right.
to get to what the truth is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so who we believe God is going to affect how we interpret what is written
Right.
Right.
just by default.
Mm-hmm.
How we interpret, how it's translated, all these things that happen, right? So I can't read it viewing God as one way and then all of a sudden interpret it some other way. That's not how it's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Based off of how I believe God is, what God is like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
And so if you believe that, he thinks these people are evil and that's the way that you believe God is,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you're going to read it. I'm like, there's all issues of divorce and
Yeah.
polygamy and all kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
that different denominations have different relationship with,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
right, in different countries.
Yep.
And so that's how I kind of view this. And so again, I'm not even here to say I know for a fact what the Bible is trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Where I come from is, hey, look, I feel like the type of person I believe God is going to honor someone honestly reading this and doing what they believe is correct.
Yeah. So something that I would like to attach to that is I agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're trying to figure out I think honestly, sincerely, we're trying to do the best that we can with the information that we have. Like I think that that is true,
Yeah.
right? So when someone's comes up to me and they're like, well, this is what the Bible says, and they're coming at it from a perspective that I used to have that I no longer have. I understand what they're saying. Like I understand where they're coming from. That's not the problem. My problem is when they take that and they use that to kind of attack
Attack.
somebody or kind of try to make them become what they think that they should become, or try to
Exactly.
put them into a shell, or just really trying to change who this person is. You can have this kind of concept, like one of my good friends in Pennsylvania. For a long time, we didn't kind of like see eye to eye because she had one thought process and I had another. But we remained, but she didn't attack me. She was just like, she would ask me questions and I would ask her questions and stuff like that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, both of us, we're trying to figure this out. We don't know, and during the course of this whole period of conversation, I was asking the same questions. I didn't know. I didn't know how God considered, gay people.
But
I
she
just,
wasn't
I just
attacking you.
remember, but she wasn't attacking me, right?
Right.
Exactly, and that's what the point was. So we. I was discovering who I was and what my relationship was to God. She's asking me questions. She's thinking this one way, but we are still really good friends. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell her about like my husband and stuff like that. It does not putting to her and stuff like that. And but it allowed us. She had a different kind of perspective because of the way, like you say, Christian, she perceives God. But we were still able to kind of like, for example, she wouldn't vote against me getting married because of her beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
because she's like, is this something that makes you happy? Yeah. Are you hurting me? No. Are you hurting
Nope.
anybody else? No. Like, and
Right.
so it's not something that she would be, against. Now, if I was going out like slaughtering a bunch of people, or I don't know, whatever, just
Crusades.
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Like they were then if I was, there's this French concept. I don't know what the French law concept, which is like it's atteint. So like if you kind of are like attacking a person, um, if you're attacking a person either physically or whatever, then that's when things become a problem. So that's how I feel it. When you start
Mm-hmm.
attacking somebody, that's when this becomes a problem for me.
Right.
And that is what the problem is with people if you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to understand it, that is totally okay. Like you can take 5-10 years to figure that out, especially if you're not part of the community, because it's not something that you have to figure out now. Like LGBTQ plus people have to figure it out because the longer it takes them to figure it out, the more unhappy that they're going to be, because they feel like they can't live their authentic selves. So then depression starts setting in. They start seeing things darkly. They become there's a term for it when you become homophobic yourself, even though you're part of the
Mm-hmm.
LGBT. I forgot what the term is. It might come back to me, but it's like internalized homophobia. So they become they start developing internal homophobia because they're not allowed to kind of discover who they are and stuff like that. So that's where it I really have a problem. So like there's what they call the clobber text in the Bible. There's like I think there's supposed to be 7 or 8 of them. Um, some like there's one in Genesis 19, and that's about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So the famous story of Sodom and Gomorrah and how that was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20:13, which also are pretty much similar, where they call men who sleep with men an abomination, right? Then there's Romans, and then in First Corinthians, and then First Timothy. And but I think that there's some others that I didn't necessarily. I've read all these multiple times. When I say multiple times, I'm saying more than maybe 200 times,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, because they do seem, if you read it from one perspective, they do seem the way that people talk about it. They do seem to come across as very like homophobic, or not homophobic, because homophobic technically means fear of like homosexuality or the same
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So it's not necessarily homophobic. It's really like hate centered on the LGBT or the gay community, I should say, because or LGBTQ, I should say, because if you're queer and you're having technically sex with a man, you would fall under this category, right? So, anyways, yeah. So I was researching this and I was talking to God about it over the course of like 15 years, I think it was, trying to understand. I was like, this is amazing. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, I see it, I read it, and I see what it's saying. And yeah, it does seem like it's condemning us, but then also it doesn't. So just for an example, Genesis 19 about the sin of like Sodom and Gomorrah, they
Mm-hmm.
call sodomy because of what the men of Sodom wanted to do to the angels who were in the form of men in the Bible, right? So they wanted to, violate them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that has been translated to the deed of a man having penetrative, intercourse with another man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me. What's interesting about that, though, if you keep reading the Bible, is that the same or a similar situation happened in Judges, right? But this time, I mean, it was a similar situation, but instead it was a Levite who had guests over, and instead of giving his guests to the tribe of, I think it was Benjamin, if I'm not mistaken, instead of, because they wanted to violate these guys, they he gave them his concubine, who they violated until she died. So it's a very, very similar situation. They're often referenced together. But what's even more interesting is that um, in the same Bible, if you look up in Ezekiel 16, like 49 and 50, I think it actually, maybe it does. No, it starts in 49. Yeah, because it was like, this is the sin of Sodom, your sister
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. It lists what the issues were for Sodom. So everyone picks out the fact that the men wanted to have, or they wanted to violate the angels who were in the form of men, because that's what their brains kind of picked out or whatever, because of the whole altercation or whatever. But in Ezekiel, it says very specifically why um, why it was destroyed, and it says because they were unkind to one another. There was no longer any love left in them. So like imagine that, like you have two
Hmm.
guests regardless of what gender they are, and you can't
Had
even
nothing to
go
do with
into a
that.
city because of your, say it again.
I say so. It had nothing to do with the what everybody says. That's interesting.
No, yeah, I mean, the Bible says that. The Bible is like, no,
No, I hear you.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. It has nothing to do with. It's all about the way that they read it and the thing that they brought from it, which has caused a worldwide kind of um, got kind of hate towards men who lie with men, or women who lie with women. It's come from this kind of misreading or reading one way of this text, right? Except the
Yeah.
Bible explains what the problem was in the beginning, and it had nothing to do with that. Yes, they wanted to do it, but it doesn't mean at that point, and this is what I like to tell people when they ask me about that, at that point, anything that these people were doing was evil. And that's what happened with that's what Ezekiel kind of makes it, and also Romans makes it out to be. They explain they wanted to do, like, you kind of list these things. If you take them out of context, you might be able to kind of reason, say, okay, well, maybe this or that or whatever. But all of these things together, you just start to see this bigger picture of, they just, like, imagine going, that's what I was saying, imagine going into a city and you're just not safe, you know,
Hmm.
like, you are just not safe nowhere, you know.
Chicago.
So, huh? Chicago.
Chicago.
Don't start, Tim.
Don't start.
Don't you do it.
But anyways, that was the point. So, like, this is, so while I'm
Yeah.
not trying to change people's, like, I'm not trying to naysay the people who are saying you're going to hell. I'm not worried about them. The way that the LGBTQ plus community in the religious environments, I think they need, if they desire, I think that they really need to know that the Bible doesn't speak against them for who they are. It doesn't speak. It's the Bible. I think for me has always just been about the way you've treated yourself, the way you treat your neighbor, and the way you treat God. I think
Yeah.
that is globally how it's been. So, anyways, Chris, you were going to say something?
No, I was just thinking about, just agreeing with you, because I think the arrogance piece, it makes it, there's a part of religion that feels like not only must I follow these things that I believe,
Yeah.
but I'm so correct in those things that I can then project that out to
Oh
say,
yeah.
the world must follow these things, otherwise we're all
Right.
doomed, right?
Exactly.
And so now it's not just about what I do, it's about making sure everyone is doing the correct
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really work, because you yourself, you don't know enough about what is correct to impose that on someone
Yeah.
else.
That's
I
what I
mean,
was
even the
thinking.
Bible itself is like, it's not our job to convict anybody,
Yeah.
right? It's not that's we aren't here to be police. I've been mentioned in the chat. I was like, the gospel is good news,
Mhm.
right? They're supposed to spread the good news.
Yeah.
Good news isn't do these 10 things or you're going to hell.
Right.
That's not a good news, right? Like, the good news is, hey, look, like, you're good.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
price was paid, you're good. Like, that's good
Yeah.
news. The other stuff is not, in my opinion, isn't for us to get too deep into,
Mhm.
as far as what other people are doing.
Right.
Say they're not harming someone else.
Right.
Because, I mean, again, there are so many things. I'm looking at the verse again. It's about Sodom. This version mentions, they were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned.
Yeah.
They didn't help the poor and needy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, like, you think about that.
Sounds like America.
I wonder what that sounds like. Right. Like at the end of the day, we have such a huge problem with that.
Yes. Mhm.
That. But we focus on all these other things that honestly simply just make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because they're unfamiliar,
Yeah.
right? You can look back, even like interracial marriage, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
there's a point where people just could not handle it. There were laws against it. It was evil.
Just
You can look at somebody sideways, like, but a lot of that was just because they were so ingrained that we're essentially two different species,
Right.
right? Like, this is not natural.
Right. Exactly.
And it took how long
Yeah.
for some people, not
Not
everybody's
everybody,
there,
right?
right? But a lot of people are like, oh, like, okay, like this is normal, this is fine, like, it's all good.
hmm
But it took some time for people, and people even use the Bible to even
Oh,
keep those things
definitely,
away.
definitely.
Children of Ham, like there's
Yeah.
all kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? But you know, again, it's not because it's so much worse. Because again, anyone reading the Bible would say there's no greater or lesser sins, really,
hmm
right? It's all equal,
Yeah.
except some make us more uncomfortable than others,
Right.
and some are more visceral than others, right? Like killing is more visceral than stealing,
Right.
but it's
At the
all
end of the day,
the
you still screwed
same,
somebody over, and you still
right?
hurt
Like
them.
it's the
Yep.
same, but it feels different. And so I think these things that feel uncomfortable to us, you know, it's like, oh, I'm not used to seeing these two guys kiss.
hmm
That means this that reinforces
Yeah.
that this is wrong.
And that's actually a very good point, because there's a lot of things, like, for example, there's this now trend where people, like, guys are painting their fingernails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Straight and people who are from the LGBTQ plus communities, especially LGBTQ plus allies, are doing that, and it's not something that I'm used to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does cause a reaction inside me that I'm just like, oh, that's not cute, sort of thing, But that makes me think, why don't I find that? Why don't I think that that is cute? And to your point, Chris, I'm like, it's something that I wasn't used to. It's something that I didn't see growing up. And when I would see it, there was so much negativity about it that it became ingrained in me that it is not something that's cute. In fact, it means something, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, also, how gay can you get? Like, I'm already 200% gay. So there really isn't, and it's really this battle within my mind. So I keep, every time I see it, I know eventually I will be like 110% okay with it, but it's this constant, like, thought process, because I have to now consciously get out of my head that this is a problem, and just let people live their lives. Again, it is not hurting me. It's not hurting
Mm-hmm.
them, and they love it. It's not hurting anybody else. It's fun. They're exploring. They're doing whatever, and that's how I feel about life anyway. Just explore. Do you, and then let other people, engage with you or watch and stuff like that. And so, to that very point, people have to understand that just because they have this visceral reaction to it doesn't mean that they are correct, and it should not be reinforcing. In fact, it should do the opposite for them. They should ask themselves, why do they have this type of reaction? Because it's not necessarily natural. It's more likely it's because it's something that has been taught to them, or they grew up seeing or learning and stuff like that, and so now they're having a problem going against it.
I wouldn't say. I would say this. It could be natural, but a reaction in itself is just a reaction. You're supposed to be conscious enough to think about why you're reacting to stuff. So just because you react to something, like I go to a movie if it's a scary movie, you know, I can get scared. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, this is a movie.
Yeah, why
Why
are
am I
you
sweating
scared?
this?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
so a
hmm
reaction in itself is just a reaction. You
Right.
know,
hmm
um, it's about what you think about after.
hmm
Is this what you truly believe, or are you just reacting because it's something you're uncomfortable with? Like
Well, even if it's
I,
something that you truly believe, is that
mhm,
belief
valid.
valid? Yeah.
I get it.
So, but I agree. Like, yeah, I think that's a good point too. Like, going to see movies, are like scary. I do not watch them.
I know.
Again, I don't watch scary movies. When I see them, I get turned off, because I don't like that. I strongly did not. But I do know that there are people who love scary movies, sort of
Yeah,
thing. But it's not hurting me if they watch scary movies.
right.
Right.
No, see, like I remember I was in high school and things start like I would get my U.S. history book, right? and that sucker just for U.S. history,
It
it
was
was
thick, right?
it was so
Yeah.
thick, right?
Yeah.
And then on Sabbath, I would go to church and I'll bring my Bible,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this contains the knowledge of the master who built everything
Right.
and everyone. And
Yeah.
and I would have to, and I had to let myself know that, you know, maybe that things in the Bible too, there's there's a lot of context and things that you have to know about stuff to understand it. You can't just go in and just read a verse and be like, "Yep, that's truth right there, that verse," and that's
But
it.
yeah, and
And
but
there's a
that's
lot of people that do that.
precisely yeah, and that's precisely my point. So like when it comes to like Sodom and Gomorrah, or Genesis 19, people will argue that tooth and nail about it. It's about homosexuality, but the context is actually in the Bible, you know, and in one verse in particular, which is in Ezekiel, which Chris read off a little bit. It explains what that is. Also in Romans, when he's referring back to that, it's the same thing, or he was referring to something similar. It's the same thing. And then also in Judges, again, there is context. It explains what the context is, right? The things that we have less context about, perhaps, are the things that are found in like Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20, where it's like if a man lies with a man, it's an abomination or whatever. And then also if a woman lies with a woman, it's an abomination. But what's also interesting about that is there's a verse in Proverbs 6 where it's like these things the Lord hates, or these six things the Lord hates, seven is an abomination. There's like a lying tongue of something, like a lying tongue of something, hands that shed innocent blood, feet that
Mm-hmm.
are quick to running to mischief. I had that verse memorized, but I don't remember it now. But anyways, it's like that really explains that whatever was written in Leviticus 18 and 20, whenever he's talking about abomination, if it's an abomination to God, it has to be something that is very contrary to God's nature, which is love. So the things that he listed the things that are listed in Proverbs are very kind of hateful things that people do. Shed hands that shed innocent blood and stuff like that. You were hurting somebody. If so if you're applying this to God, it has to be that you are either attacking
One
your
of his creations.
one of his creations, or you're attacking God. You know,
Yeah.
and usually God can handle it. I mean, I
I,
don't think God has ever not handled like if somebody was attacking him, like in the story of like Hezekiah.
Stop attacking me.
Exactly. But
But
anyways,
It's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just thinking about a lot of these things. It's very cut and dry until sincere people start to see it differently,
yeah,
right?
mhm,
And it doesn't mean it needs to be a 50-50 split before we legitimize another view,
right,
right? If we've got, say, some 10% of scholarly people out there studying this having a different conclusion,
yeah,
right? Then I think we need to be like, hey, this thing is no longer settled,
right, yeah,
yeah,
right? And
hmm
so what that means is let's let it go for now, right?
hmm
Because I can't imagine. Again, we can chalk it up to evil and the work of the deceiver, that this
hmm
5% are being led astray, and that is the symbol of collapse,
right, yeah,
right?
hmm
Again, that's going to come based off of your perspective,
right,
right? The other perspective is, hey, in this area, we are coming to a better understanding in response to like culture and looking back and just better knowledge of human nature and science and all kinds of things as to, you know, again, I just think about there's just so many reasons why someone is a certain way. You went back to ADHD, right?
yeah,
Like sure, there's a lot more diagnoses now. That doesn't necessarily mean it's more.
Mm-hmm.
It means now we know what to call it,
Right.
and we know where it comes from and why it
Right.
exists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so it doesn't mean all of a sudden there's more gay people. I don't know the statistics. We will probably never know.
No. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do know is that we have better language and tools and understanding and to start talking about these things.
Yeah.
So as we talk about them and expose them, it becomes more to the surface.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like, oh, it came out of nowhere. It's in the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we're teaching it in school, right?
Yeah.
I think it's because the more you become aware of things, the more you notice the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the more I want a Tesla, the more Teslas I see.
Yeah.
It gets on my
Right.
last nerve
Yeah.
because I'm like, they're everywhere now.
Or you see
They're here.
you see your car everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like the things you think about, you see them, right? And so I think as we get better at representation in media and around, it just kind of accelerates that.
Yeah.
But also, I think it helps us. It takes us away from like the gut reaction mode
Yeah.
into be able to like look at it objectively. I think about if we were to see, I'm going to use an extreme example. Let's say two 100-year-olds like making out in a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people be like, "Oh, I can't look at that," right? But I'm sure in some cultures that's going to be a very beautiful thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not because it's disgusting.
Right.
Mm-mm.
It's because the way I've been raised, that is not a normal thing, and it's bothering me.
Yeah.
It's not because there's something inherently ew about a loving 100-year-old couple kissing, right? Like in some ways, that could be the most beautiful thing that you could see.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the way that we view the elderly, like there's all kinds of things I could probably go into as to why I'd be like, oh, I really, that is making me very, like it's very uncomfortable. Now, if there's two 18-year-olds, then I might have a different reaction, right? Just because of that's just how we are ingrained. And also because look back at the media, what we're being fed, right? Like we're being fed that, like this is normal, this is natural, like look at this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, oh yeah, that's normal. Like I see that, that's whatever, so I don't know. I hope that I think as a society, we can learn to be okay just not knowing things. Like I know I'm saying all this very arrogantly. It can sound like, how dare you know you not know you don't know things? Like it's, I'm being very preachy about it, but I'm trying to be humble that, hey, like the older I get, the more I am exposing myself to things, the more I'm coming to know how little I understand and know, and just trying to just try to live in that, right? Like, hey, it's okay to not be certain about things.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I can't live my life and not take steps forward. Right. You gotta be able to step forward in uncertainty. Like, hey, this is the path that I believe. I believe this is true. I'm going to step on this thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
what else are we gonna do?
Two things on that, and that's where I'm at right now. See, like when I was young, you guys, anybody that knew me, there was a moment in my life where my grandfather calls it that holy sword, that double bladed holy sword cuts in. It cuts in one way, cuts the other. I was swinging that bad boy. So,
I know that.
I was swinging that bad boy.
They had a whole arsenal.
Yes, I did.
But and then what I was saying earlier, I really had to look. I had to look at the Bible, but not like in the pages. I had to look at the object in which I was supposed to be getting all my logic from and all my knowledge and the size of it. Now I've seen people where they have these like dictionary Bibles, but I'm not talking about those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about just the plain Bible.
Right. Yeah.
It comes with a lot of uncertainty, and it even calls for Christians to be humble. Well, how can you be humble if you're going around telling people everybody's wrong? That don't sound humble.
Yeah. No.
So I really had to think about it. There are people. Are we meant to go around and condemn people and tell everybody they're wrong. No, because the Bible never says any. It doesn't tell people to do that at all. It tells you to basically to be humble, you know, and try to live within the commandments. And you know, it doesn't tell, but it tells you stories of people who did these things, you know, but it doesn't tell you to do those things. The only thing it
Yeah,
requires is that you just keep your mind on God, follow commandments, and understand that you don't know everything, and to be
well, I
humble,
mean,
basically.
yeah, if you ask me, it doesn't require anything.
No, I mean it
I
doesn't
think
really, but
God is very much. This is my the way I've come to understand and know God. I think He's very much like, do you? This is the best way to do it, which is love. And I think humans now, over the course of time, have come to realize that it's much better to love, support others than to be dictatorial, hateful. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. For me, the Bible doesn't. I know it reads like you have to
Hmm.
do this, this, and this, and I know that there are a lot of Christians who adhere to that, where it's like, I've got to do this. I've got to pray 3 times a day, like Daniel, which I used to believe. Wait, yeah, Daniel. I got to pray 3 times a day. I've got to be vigilant and stuff like that. I don't think that's just a personal belief. I don't. I was telling a friend of mine this recently. Um, there's the law, and then the things that we call the Ten Commandments, which apparently, from what I've learned, is
Hmm.
not what we call the Ten Commandments weren't actually considered the Ten Commandments. They were called the Ten Sayings. Apparently, there were Ten
Hmm.
Commandments, but they're elsewhere, and they say something different. Something different. Um,
Hmm.
we could talk about that in the topic if we want to. But anyways, but when Jesus asked the, or sorry, when the guy, whoever that was, asked Jesus what the in, the greatest law, or what was the greatest commandment? He was like, "What do you think it is?" And he was like, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart." And then Jesus was like, "Yes." And the second one is comes out of it, love your neighbor as yourself.
Hmm.
Upon this, all of the law and the prophets come. So I
Yes.
Hmm.
think in all things, when you're looking at these, when you're trying to take the law and be like, I have to do this, I have to do that, blah 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 blah. I think you really should just kind of look at that in respect to what Jesus said about the law, which is just love, you know, and you'll figure these things out. And in question to like living in question, it is very arrogant. Christians or religions, I should say, in general, are very arrogant, assuming that they know everything. Who were we talking to? I think it was
I think it was Billy Idol, probably.
Biliato who was
Hmm.
saying no, but there was somebody else who we were talking to who was like, yeah, the
Oh, I think it was Kumar back in
Yeah.
season
Earlier.
oh
one.
Yeah.
yeah, because they're right,
Yeah.
because he was like, it's very. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like arrogant or something to think that we always have to ask the answer. We don't. We don't know very much about
But that's how
anything.
we're brought up to
We're
believe
brought
that
up
we're
to, and that's the
supposed to.
thing. We're taught to
Yeah.
think that we should know everything. And again, I used to think that until you realize you don't know this. You know this much of
Hmm.
like an entire galaxy. It is
Yeah.
absolutely ludicrous how much we don't know, right?
Doesn't the Bible
And so
tell us to be as little children?
yeah, and then so then to assume
So
that
I
we
used to.
know all this, and to condemn somebody for this and to condemn somebody for that, we know we need to love each other. So if you want to pull out any commandment, pull out that one, love each other and seek to love God. I don't think it's a command. I think it's like him saying, this is the best way. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about, but you do you. I think the people who learn to love each other and to respect each other end up living much more fruitful and fulfilling lives and stuff like that. So, anyways, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good note to leave it. And as I think about, circling back to Pride Month, I was just trying to think of a way to tie it all together.
Yeah.
And it really, to me, it's about, letting people love themselves
Yeah.
and love who they want to love.
Yeah.
Right. Like to me, like if we try to boil it down, I think you could almost boil it down to, hey, look, like these people just want to be able to love themselves and to love others the way they want to love them.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's not about, hey, we want to go out and have crazy sex parties and orgies and things like like
I
it's
to
like
be honest, I mean, I thought someone might bring that up. I think also this is just my perspective, but I don't think that is an issue either. So like if people are going out and having these crazy sex parties and stuff like that, if that's something that they want to do, because people like to focus on the LGBTQ plus community, but the heteros have been doing it for far longer and been doing far more things than
oh
are
sure.
actually even in the active party scene in the LGBTQ plus community, right? But even what they're doing, I don't think, this is a personal opinion again, but I don't think that that's an issue. Again, I have to compare it. I don't have to. I choose to um, view it from the lens of love. Like, are they having fun? Yeah. Are they hurting anybody? No. Especially in the LGBTQ plus community, like almost everybody's on prep now. So like, they're trying to protect themselves and each other, sort of things. So I really think it's whatever it is that your action is doing, whatever it is that your action is doing, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you're doing it in kind of love and respect. And then outside of that, no one should have any issue, and you shouldn't be looking for any issue. You've got problems of your own. Stop turning. But to end on it, to end this topic, one thing that I felt was very important for uh, my family and my LGBTQ plus family in the religion, is just make sure that they understood, that we understand that God loves us regardless, regardless of who we are. Like he loves us, not despite.
Mm-hmm.
That is pejorative, but regardless of who we are, he loves us, and he is not trying to get us to change regardless of what people are saying. That is a human thing, trying to get us to change. God wants us to love each other. That's how we've been set on this world. That is what Jesus said, and that's what he confirmed. So that is what I feel like, if anything, you should focus on that. And if you don't want to take it for the Bible's sake, just take it from history's sake. We have learned love is far more powerful, far more restorative than hate and negativity. So
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for joining us today. I would love to read your comments
yes.
on Instagram or Spotify or YouTube. We are not here to try to argue with you.
No.
So, you know, um, don't try to come pick fights because we're not really trying to do that.
No.
But you want to comment? We're happy to have dialogue and continue to talk this through and help understanding. I assume no one's here to hate listen to our podcast and come make nasty comments. Though some people do, but if that's your thing,
exactly.
hey,
Go for it.
more power to you. But thanks for being with us today. Thanks again to you two. Thanks to Tim, our graphic artiste,
Yes.
putting these hot thumbnails out there these days. We appreciate you, sir. Thanks again to Nate for hard work editing. Someday when I get over my Diablo addiction, I will I'll get back to my training regimen. Thanks always to Jade Moore for the theme music. And again, find us everywhere. Unofficially Opinionated. We're on YouTube. Everywhere else, subscribe, review, like, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And we'll catch y'all next time.
Ciao.
Bye, Tim.